I am the program manager of the Alex Panton Foundation, and we are celebrating Women's History Month or Women's Honoring Women's Month as we do in the Cayman Islands. So this is March 31st. So it's been a beautiful month with so many celebrations regarding women and the history around women, as well as the achievements. And I know that a theme was also Give to Gain this year. So it's been an honor just to be able to have this presentation, this lunch and learn ready to go and to celebrate and close off honoring Women's Month or Women's History Month. So I'm going to ask for the recording to start. If it hasn't yet, so we can start that. So welcome everyone. We are a few minutes, where is 1:05, just give us some people some time to come in and just settle in and we're ready to go. So today I am so happy to be moderating a virtual panel discussion with two amazing speakers. And before I get into that, we're going to look at today's agenda to give everyone an understanding what's happening or the questions that are going to be asked as well. Okay, so if my computer, yes. Okay, so today's agenda, we're going to do an introduction of our speakers. And then before we get into the panel discussion, we're going to do a definition of mental health and resilience so we understand what we're talking about and giving some people more language around these different terms. Then we go into the panel discussion as well as a Q&A, question and answer section in case anyone has any questions, as well as resources that are available on Island for additional support, as well as a feedback survey. We do ask everyone to stay to the end if you can to complete the feedback survey, as this provides us with so much information and how we can make our lunch and learns better for the future. And you can actually put your suggestions or some interested topics that you want us to speak about in relation to mental health. You complete the feedback survey to do that, okay? So let's get started. So introduction of our speakers. Today we have Miss Monique Anderson-Koch as well as Miss Toni Edwards. So I'm gonna ask Monique to come on first and to give an introduction of herself.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Monique Anderson. I am school counselor at John Gray High School. I am the mother of one amazing young man. He is in year 10 here also at John Gray High School. I'm also the founder of the Beautiful Me Empowerment Ministry. I'm an author and I'm also a licensed associate psychologist.
Great, thank you for that. Toni, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Toni, if you are speaking, you have yourself on mute, okay?
I am so sorry about that technical difficulties. Hi, my name is Toni Edwards. So I also am a mother. I'm a mother of a 2-year-old toddler, a little boy as well. I am a spokesperson for mental health. I have been diagnosed with bipolar. I've also been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So I do make it my mission to advocate as someone who has experienced this, may it be amongst women or children or even men, just letting them know about the stigma and trying to break the stigma around mental health while educating people and being a voice for those who may be afraid to speak on the mental health that they are going through as well.
Great. Thank you both for those lovely introductions. As you can see, we have a personal experience side as well as a psychologist side as well, so we can have a full picture of mental health in this conversation, right? And I think it's a beautiful thing to include every voice and advocate for mental health in this way. Okay, so before we go into our panel discussion, I'm just going to give a brief definition of mental health and resilience so that the audience has a better understanding of what we're going to be talking about today, okay? So when it comes to mental health, how we define this, we look at the definition from World Health Organization, which defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual achieves their potential, copes with the normal stresses of life, works productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and it affects how we think, feel, and act. So, really and truly, when you think of every area of life, mental health plays a part in it. And when we look at mental health, we can look at it like physical health. It's something that we all have, right? And it can range from across the spectrum from healthy to unwell, and it can fluctuate on a daily basis and change over time too. Okay, so we all have mental health, and then certain experiences, sometimes biology, sometimes socialization, it contribute to whether we trickle into not having our mental health in a particular way, and it can actually cause particular symptoms too. So I just wanted you to think of it from that. We all have it, and we all cope. We all struggle. We all go from unwell at times. So it's something that we all have, and this is a conversation that everyone can be included in. Okay. And then when it comes to resilience, so according to the American Psychological Association, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. Okay. That's just kind of a fancy way of saying, we all go through things and through life experiences, and it affects how we process those things mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally, and having the capacity to juggle or manage those things. And we make adjustments, right? So when it comes to resilience, there are some factors that contribute to to how individuals adapt, okay? So those factors include the ways in which they view and engage in the world, the availability and quality of social resources, and specific coping strategies. And I think that's such a beautiful way to look at how we as humans adapt, because we're all actually going to talk about that from both Monique and Toni's experiences, and going to leave you with some tidbits here and there, right? As well as resources and skills associated with more positive adaptation, that is, greater resilience, can be cultivated and practiced. I wanted to include that in this presentation because we are not necessarily born being resilient. We don't, when we go through a situation, if we never handle it in a particular way, doesn't mean that we stop that resilient muscle from growing in that moment, or that there's no capacity for growth, because that is absolutely not the case. And I think it's beautiful that, even as adults, we can cultivate and we can practice how to become more resilient throughout our lives. So, with that being said, we're going to go into panel discussion right now. Okay, we do have a few questions, and I'm going to be mindful of time as well. So we're going to get through them as quickly and beautifully as possible, not rushing anything. And I want this also to be like a conversation, right? So if you, the audience, are listening and you have questions, we do have a Q&A section as mentioned earlier. So jot those questions down on a notepad or even the chat section, and then we can talk about it afterwards. Okay. So, and this question is going to be both for Toni and Monique. I'm going to start with Monique first. Okay. So, how do you personally define resilience? I know we had that definition earlier, but that was very psychological. But how do you personally define resilience, and how's that definition change over the course of your life? So, Monique, once you're finished, Toni, you can go ahead and answer that question as well.
Okay, thank you. Very good question, Renee. So, for me, um, uh, a long time, I thought that resilience meant being strong and pushing through pain without breaking. uh, I believe that resilience meant surviving. But as time goes by, I've grown spiritually and emotionally. And so, of course, my definition of resilience changed. Now, for me, resilience is having the ability to heal. It's having it's rebuilding. It's getting back up when life knocks you down. Um, it is just, getting that, being able to rise with the help of God, because God is in the midst of everything. Resilience is, it's not about pretending that everything is okay. It's not about pretending that the things that happens to us, that it doesn't hurt, but it is offering yourself grace. It's allowing yourself to feel. It's allowing yourself to process the pain, and learning from it, as a matter of fact, and just still choosing hope. It means on a spiritual level for me that I'm surrendering everything to God, and I'm surrendering to the process, and I'm trusting in His timing, and believing that, broken places can still produce beauty.
Wow. So it definitely changed for you from going like you strong, just keep going to more of I'm allowing this to happen and
Yes,
processing it as well as surrendering it, right? And your faith comes
yes.
into this and plays
Mhm.
a strong part of your resilience, right? Toni, you
Yeah.
want to answer this for me? How do you personally define resilience and how has that changed for you over the course of your life?
Yeah, so I agree a lot with what Miss Monique said. She is correct. Resilience isn't just fighting. I used to think it just meant, okay, you fight or you push down the
Mhm.
emotions that you're feeling inside, and you're like, okay, I feel sad, but I have to go to work. I have to deal with life. I'm just not going to tackle it. No, that's not resilience. Resilience is, what is making me sad? Why am I angry? It's checking in with your body and how your body is feeling and relating it to, does something around you just happen? Is there a life change that's going on? Resilience is power. It's being courageous in a situation where other people may not stand with you, but because you know this is something you want to fight for, or this is something that is greater good for you, you're still going to fight, even if it's just you by yourself. So resilience isn't something you obtain overnight. And it doesn't mean just because I'm resilient, every day is bright and shiny. No, we still have rough days. We're still on the boat and we're still rocking, but it just means we're holding onto the boat and we're not going to jump off. And like Miss Monique said, it's involving prayer or involving, other things that help you to encourage you with your resilience and with your fight as well.
Yes, I like that analogy with the boat, right? It's like you're still in this, you could be in a storm, but you're still in the boat. You're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
you're still able to move with the waves. It could be a hurricane, or it could be
Mhm.
a little tide here and there, but it's about just moving with it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we move on to the next question? No? Okay.
No.
No, man, we summed it up.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is the biggest obstacle or hurdle you have faced? We're gonna start with you, Toni, okay? What is the biggest obstacle or hurdle you have faced? What kept you going? And what did it teach you?
So, the biggest obstacle that I have faced, I am still facing and I am still learning. It is being a mother. So, I'm sure a lot of ladies that are on here who may be mothers can testify. Just being a mother at its own is an obstacle. In my situation, when you have two different mood disorders, it can be a little bit more challenging because you have a child who is navigating their own emotions, their own feelings. Because my child is now 2; he's a toddler, so we're at that stage of him navigating his emotions, his big feelings, his wants, and his needs, as well as me trying to navigate, even if I'm in my mood, how to separate the two. So, how to take a second to take a deep breath and then come back to him and get down to his level instead of yelling at him and saying, okay, you having big emotions, what it is. So, it's me just navigating the way I would speak to other people or handle other situations. It's not the same you may do with a child, in per se, who is still learning. And it's not in the wrong because they're little humans that, have emotions that they're still trying to navigate on their own. But he has also helped me when navigating relationships with other people, because I'm learning, just like with my 2-year-old, Sometimes I may have to step away from a friend or step away from a situation, even if it's a colleague. You may have to take that deep breath, come back to them, and then explain to them, this is how I'm feeling, or ask them, okay, how can we navigate through this difficult moment instead of writing that emotion to be like, you're mad and I'm mad. So now we're both yelling or arguing with one another. So that has been my biggest one, my biggest obstacle that I'm still learning to navigate through.
I guess
Yeah.
like what kept you going? Like what keeps you going at like obviously you have a toddler, right?
Mhm.
Um, but and then sometimes it can get really difficult too, right? But like what what helps you push through those moments? Like is there a particular thing you say to yourself that helps you push through those moments?
Yes, so it was more of my mother who reminded me that he is very much like me. So apparently at his age, his anger, his aggression was something that I also had. So I'm like, okay, if I'm 28 now and it took me some time, imagine him who has me, who understand what my parents didn't understand, who understands emotions and how to navigate it. So I'm teaching him techniques that was not taught to me, and I'm watching them. So, like even the other day he got upset and he did one, two, three, and that for me was like, wait, we've been practicing that since you were one and you're finally getting it. So it's like seeing the progress also is a motivation within itself to say, okay, we could keep doing this. We're going to get over this obstacle.
Yeah. And I love that perspective too, just because it's almost like you are taking care of baby you in a
Yes.
sense, right? But also too, there was a quote that I came across the other day, and it was like, you get your children to teach you lessons, like your personal lessons, like to address certain things within yourself, right? And do you feel like that quote aligns
Yes.
or
Yes. Especially with
okay.
patience. He's teaching me a lot of patience, which I did not have before. So yes, it's true.
Okay, thank you for that, Tony. And Monique, what about you? What is the biggest obstacle or hurdle you have faced and what kept you going and what did it
Wow.
teach
Okay, so for me, it was being diagnosed with recurrent depressive disorder. As the counselor, you are showing up for people, you're helping people, and you are even helping them through the different diagnoses, and then here so like I hit rock bottom in the sense that I had gotten to a place of sadness and like hopelessness, low energy, poor concentration. And, I'm like, oh my God, what is happening to me? I see this, in my interactions and in my sessions with my kids and even with adults. And then here I am, like, this is happening to me to the point where I almost lost my job. um, I had blackout curtains in my apartment. I just couldn't face the world. I was breaking down in front of my students, and for me that was like the biggest thing. And it was just so many things that were happening at once. When I say rock bottom, I hit rock bottom because I was also going through a divorce at the time, and battling alcoholism, and yes, taking care of a child because now I had to face the reality that I'm officially a single mom, and just going through the divorce. And I did not have any fight in me, so I basically lost everything. And I remember one morning I laid on the floor, and I said, God, this is unfair. Sorry. I said, God, this is very unfair, because it somehow seemed at that time that my ex-husband, that he won. And I said, God, it is not fair, you know, that he's won. And now here I am stuck with all of this. Like I lost myself. And when I say rock bottom, it was rock bottom. And I remember the Lord saying to me that day that I don't mind starting over. because when I start over, I am not starting from scratch. We're starting from experience, you know. So I remember that morning I got up, I cried, bawled my eyes out. I got up and I checked myself into therapy. And then just the journey of therapy was so hard because then I had to relive some trauma, some deep stuff that I never spoke about. You know, I never spoke about the substance abuse. I never spoke about the sexual abuse. I never spoke about the physical, the mental, emotional abuse. And so just having have to relive all of that while I had to still show up for my son. I still had to show up at work for my students, you know, and I always say that sometimes people see the strength, but they see you, but they don't understand that, you know, there were those seasons when pain and questioning and just having have to rebuild my identity, rebuild who I am. But I can tell you that what really kept me going, it was my faith in God. And that is the reason I have the Beautiful Me Empowerment Ministry, because God reminds me, and this is the foundation scripture, Psalm 147, verse 3, where God reminds me that He heals the broken heart and He binds up their wounds. And so, you know, for just a little encouragement for somebody who is online, that your pain does not disqualify you. Sometimes, you know, your pain, as God has used mine, your pain is actually where God is that most useful place. God uses that place to build your purpose. And, you know, like I said, that is the reason I became this person who is on a mission to empower the girls here at John Gray. But yeah, that would have been my most difficult season.
You know what? I really appreciate you sharing that, Monique, because it's really hard to express our own personal experiences, especially in a serving counselor, therapy, psychologist type of position, because you're meant to like shut it down a bit and take it on. And it's like, but you're good. Like you're the one who helps people. But I'm grateful that you said that, because there's so many people, so many women, and maybe even on this call, who is going through a divorce, who has experienced sexual abuse or abuse in general, alcoholism, just these different things. And it reminds me, this is this is reason why we have to be kind to everyone. Just because you see someone and they're doing so well in the public eye, you don't know what they've gone through to get there, or what they're currently going through to stay in their current position, right? So thank you for sharing that. And I think it actually humanizes you as well, or humanizes those within those spaces, those therapeutic spaces too, where it's like, yeah, I go through this, I went through this, and it actually creates more empathy within ourselves too, because sometimes when you don't go through something, you don't fully understand it, but when you go through it, it actually helps you to serve and to be there for people in a way that you couldn't if you didn't go through what you went through, you know? So I thank you for that. And what
Yeah,
I gained from
absolutely.
that And what I gained from that just now is like, even if you feel like you have to rebuild, you don't start from scratch. You start with what you've had already learned in your past. You just rebuild, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for that. Okay. So, question number three, what was your new normal after a major change? So it's very related to the question just now. And how did you adapt to it? So, Monique, I'm going to start with you. Okay. What was your new normal after that major change, for example? And what did you do to adapt to it to make you feel a little bit more empowered?
Okay, so you know, I had to basically um embrace the new norm, as a matter of fact, that to say, okay, I have there's a diagnosis. So one thing for me, and I always say to my students, I always say to them, okay, so yes, there is a diagnosis, but I'm not going to call it, you know, how so often persons will say my depression or my anxiety. I don't claim it because I always tell them I'm a very spiritual person. There's nowhere in the Bible that God told me that depression is my portion. So I will say the depression. It doesn't mean that I'm denying the fact that it is there. It is there. And so now I know that it is there. I had to now start living life with greater intentionality and, of course, surrender. So, one of the things that I had to learn was that healing is not a one-time event. It's a process and it is a journey. And I had to now be patient. I had to set boundaries, and boundaries was never my strong suit because, when you're coming from a place of so much abuse and trauma, then you learn the art of people pleasing and, overcompensating and seeking validation constantly and earning love. Like you felt like, I know that a lot of persons, including myself, who are coming from a history of sexual abuse where you felt like, okay, I have to earn people's love, and you're constantly seeking validation and everything. So I had to unlearn that way of thinking. I had to exit survival mode and then adapt to a new way of thinking that included setting boundaries, prioritizing my emotional wellness, and prioritizing that and protecting my peace. And this meant that if I go home this evening and the tears are flowing, I had to learn not to beat up on myself, but just to offer myself grace. So the same graces that I offer to my students and anybody else that I encounter on a daily basis, I now had to offer myself the forgiveness. I had to offer myself the patience and the compassion and the empathy and all of that, because the tendency sometimes before I learned about the diagnosis and what it all entails, like I would be like, why are you crying now? Nothing is wrong with you. I was so hard on myself. So I had to learn now to offer myself grace and to trust God, to trust God even when I did not understand it. And, just all of that, it took work. And but I have grown. I have grown a whole lot. And I also understand that you can be healed and healing at the same time, because there were moments when I felt like I was regressing rather than progressing. Like I felt like, okay, we're back at square one. And then I had to be like, okay, no more. That's not where we are. It just means that maybe something happened that triggered an emotion, and so it is okay to feel. And not only that, but just becoming more aware, in the sense that, okay, these are some of the symptoms that comes with the diagnosis. And so whenever I'm in that space, I had to, instead of beating up on myself, I had to stop and say, okay, what might we be experiencing right now? Is this a presentation of the depression? What is it? And so to act accordingly. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
it's a
great.
journey.
Healing is a lifestyle, right?
It is.
Basically.
It is.
Yeah, and we can be really hard on ourselves
Hmm.
too. Like, and I feel
Yeah.
like I speak for almost everyone when I say like we are
Hmm.
our harshest critic. And
Yeah.
there's a quote from Brene Brown that I try my best to remember. I probably need to put it somewhere so I can see it more often, where it's like talk to yourself like you're
Hmm.
talking to someone you love. Because the
Yes.
things that we say to ourselves, we
True.
wouldn't dare say it to someone we love,
Yes.
right? So
Hmm.
we need to
Yeah.
start embodying that, but it takes work. It
It
takes
does.
time for
And
sure.
intentionality, like it really does. Whew, it's an investment, but you have to believe that you are worth it. And
Yes.
just to celebrate the small wins. So, like getting through an entire week without breaking down, that's a
Mhm.
win. You
Yeah,
celebrate those wins.
exactly.
Yeah.
I hear that. I agree with that. Tony, for you, what was your new normal after a major change? I know you talked about motherhood being that major change for you. How was your new normal and what did you do to adapt to it and still adapting to it as you mentioned that you're still learning?
So a lot of what Monique said is exactly how I feel. We are our biggest critic. So a part of it was me also getting out of my head, telling myself this is my diagnosis or something happened today, or maybe a trauma that I experienced is what's telling me I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy to be in this position. What am I doing? Trying to be a single mother. So a lot of it was me having conversations with myself, even to a point of looking in the mirror, even purposely making sure the songs that I'm listening to are motivational songs. So instead of them telling me I'm not worthy or depressed, they're telling me like, you the bad girl and you this and that and get on and you could do it and you're strong and independent. Because even sometimes listening to music can help change and alter your mood without you knowingly knowing. So you may be good and depending on what you're listening to, now you're depressed and sad and you don't know why. So I try to be mindful with that as well. Um, my new norm for me is still changing, as we said, with having a child, trying to figure it out. One of the things I learned is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay, especially as a single parent, to ask for help. I was raised as if you made the child, that's your responsibility. You want to be an adult, that's your responsibility. In the year that we're living in now, it's if you have mom, grandma, dad, grandpa, even a best friend, once you trust the person, it's okay to say, hey, can you grab so and so for like 24 hours, 48 hours? I have a system now where I am so happy when the weekend comes. My son back, go to daddy, go to grandma. At first I felt so bad. I felt like, oh, I'm the worst mom who gives up their kid for like 2 days. And then I realized mentally I needed to unwind. When he's here, I'm not unwinding. When he's sleeping, that's my alone time. And instead of unwinding, I'm not gonna lie, I'm scrolling through TikTok or Instagram versus, unwinding and trying to journal, maybe reading my Bible, maybe just taking the moment to say, hey, I haven't detailed clean because I have a 2 year running around. Let me detail clean because for me that's a stress reliever. That's putting my work into cleaning makes me feel better. Cleaner home, cleaner mindset, cleaner lifestyle. But like Monique said, it is a lifestyle that I am working on. I am learning the way I live, the people that are around you, the things that you do have to be intentional. If they are not intentional, they will not align with your progress of your work. So instead of you going forward, you're going to go backwards and keep going backwards instead of progressing. So I'm still trying to set up, what works best for me. I'm learning, get up a little bit early, do certain things. But yes, to the moms out there, pack the kids, pack the kid, pack them all, pack the dog, pack everybody up, send them. Take that 1 day or 2 days. It's okay. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you a great mom, if anything, because you are taking the time to work on your mental health. And I'm learning if my mental health isn't good, how can my child's mental health be good? I have to be good in order to help him navigate himself as well.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that to actually taking time for yourself, right? And that's going to look different for everyone, right? Like I know you express your self-care journey, right? And sometimes other people have to you have to tailor your self-care plan to you at the end of the day, right? Knowing what will work best for you too. And also just keeping mindful of your responsibilities. Like you are responsible for these things in your life, and some of us aren't parents, right? But we're responsible for certain things, but cultivating a little bit of time for yourself goes so far, right? So I think that's so important to for women especially. And there's something that's called mental load. I was listening to a conversation on Daybreak about this for Honor Women's Month. And my friend who is a therapist, Trinell Graham, she talked about the mental load of women. We think of like sometimes people just see the outcome, but don't understand the mental load that goes behind that outcome, the planning of everything that goes behind it. So our brains are usually just on, right? So I think it's important to unload your mental load from time to time, right? So thank you for saying that because self-care is so important. All right, looking at time. Okay, whoo, our conversation is going by quite quickly. It's so fruitful. Okay, so who do you think embodies resilience? I'll start with you, Toni. Who do you think embodies resilience?
I body resilience, you bother resilience. So does Monique, and so does everyone in the group right now. Resilience is something that anyone can obtain and anyone can have. It's a personal journey, it's a personal fight. So, like I said, resilience to me is, it's a power. It's a power that you have within yourself. It's not just, okay, today I'm fighting. It's, well, tomorrow is a bad day, but I'm still putting up a fight, whether it's good or whether it's bad. It's you taking time to love on yourself, taking time to educate yourself. May it just be that you are diagnosed with something, or even if you're not diagnosed with any mental disorder, it's okay. You still need to love on yourself and take time for yourself to give yourself that mental grace as well. So anyone can embody resilience. I think it's how you determine to define resilience and how you're going about it. But once you don't get up or you don't get off the boat, like I said earlier, give yourself a round of applause. You are resilient. Once you're staying in and putting up a fight, and it's okay to have that day where, oh, I didn't get out of bed today. I was depressed. It doesn't mean it's the end of the day. Like, you got to think about it. Like Monique said, there are 7 days in a week. So if one day you didn't get out of bed, but what about the other six? Did you get out of bed? Did you go get some sunshine? Did you go for a walk? Did you love on yourself? So just giving ourselves that grace to know that not every day is going to be perfect, but once you're still putting in that fight and still, yeah, hold on to the roller coaster ride and you
Yeah.
are resilient. Yes.
Ups and downs. So I am going to
Yes.
ask Monique to answer after this question. After I'm going to ask you to answer number five, since you talked about everyone being resilient. What
Yes.
moment made you realize that you were resilient?
um, so the moment I realized I was resilient, if I have to be 100% honest, was the day a psychiatrist looked at me and asked me, how am I still here? He was surprised based off of the trauma, similar to Monique, but based off the trauma and certain life turns that I took, certain decisions that I made, that I was still able to sit in front of him and have a conversation, that I was aware with how I feel. I was able to align with my body and things that were going on with me. Usually with the two mood disorders, you're not ideally the best, especially me who I'm on medication sometimes, but not always. So they were kind of like, and you're not medicated, but that's when I realized I was resilient, because I was like, oh, there's other people that are like me. However, they're not where I am. So they either gave up or they don't have that same fight. Maybe they don't have the same support or whatever it may be. But that's the day I realized I was resilient. I was like, okay, I'm still fighting. Things are going on, but I'm still putting up that fight.
Mhm. And I guess too, having that objective standpoint too, coming from not just a professional, but just someone else that doesn't know you, and like, wow, you're still here doing this thing,
Yeah.
and it really puts things in perspective because for you, that's just your normal, right? And
Yeah.
and the expectation that you thought you had to place on yourself and family and everything too, right? So it's good to have someone to say, hey, you are doing a great job outside of
That
look
reassurance, yes.
look at everything. You're doing a great job. All right. So Monique, answering question 4 and 5 together, who do you think embodies resilience and what moment made you realize that you were resilient yourself?
Okay, so I'm gonna agree, of course, with Toni. For me, I see resilience, and since we're still celebrating, it's the last day of International Women's Month. So I'm gonna say that I see resilience in ordinary women doing extraordinary things on a daily basis. It's Toni, it's Renee, it's me, it's every single woman that is on this line. It's the single mothers who are raising children with limited resources. It's the women who have survived abuse and are rebuilding their lives. It's the young girls that we encounter on a daily basis that they're finding their voice after years of being silent, right? And resilience doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes resilience really and truly look like getting up every morning and trying again. So for me, that is what resilience represent for me. And for question 5, which is the moment that made me realize that I was resilient. So my sister, when I was diagnosed, something that happened. I almost lost my job, and I hit rock bottom. And I believe it was a Mother's Day, and she wrote a tribute on her blog where she added a word to all the letters in the word mother, and R was the letter that she attributed to me, and the word she used was resilience. And when I started reading it, tears came to my eyes. And she continued by saying that, she's watched me over the years and she's seen me bend when I needed to, but I never broke, as I went through those seasons. And like I said, that moment brought tears to my eyes. And I began just doing a reflection on the journey. And just looking back at the journey, I realized that there were so many things that I had experienced, that were definitely destined to break me. Like I attempted suicide twice. Um, and God would have used my 2 year old the first time to just speak life into me. I remember that day, 2 year old, he came and he hugged me, and in Jamaican language patois, he said, "Mommy, every little thing I gonna be all right," and meaning every little thing is going to be all right. And I knew in that moment that it was only God who could have spoken through my 2 year old. And so, when she said that, I started reflecting on all of that. And I was like, oh my God, I am still standing, still believing, still helping others heal, and that was the moment when I realized that resilience isn't just about survival, but it was more so about transformation. It is more so about falling down, but getting back up and just pushing, just staying in the boat, right, Toni? Yes.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely right. Like, I did a training the other day, and a lot of times when we think of question four, who embodies resilience, we think of sometimes we think of like movie stars or celebrities or people who are much older than us and like history makers, like, all those things, right? But resilience could come from someone who is a sibling, or like that comment, like externally, can come from a sibling or even your child or someone younger than you to make you realize, like, yeah, I am resilient. Like, or them themselves are resilient. Like, we don't necessarily need all the flashy accolades to make us feel that we're resilient or we're strong. Is an internal knowing, right? Or we having those around us who keep pushing us as well, right? So it's interesting that that external support reminded both of you that you were resilient, right? And we do have a comment for Patricia in the chat that says, "This was wonderful. Thank you in both for being vulnerable and sharing your experiences." And I couldn't agree more. Like, this takes a lot. This takes a lot to share our personal experiences on this platform, right? So, question 6. What are your daily or weekly strategies for staying grounded and taking care of your mental or emotional well-being? Monique, you could go ahead.
So for me, I've learned over time, and we always hear this popular saying that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And it is true. So I've included a lot of grounding practices in my everyday life. One of them, and people will say, "How do you wake up at 3:30 in the morning?" I wake up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. I'm very intentional, and I spend those first moments in prayer, my time with God, journaling and reflection, and that is how I end up, being author for 3 books. And the fourth one is coming soon. So it's by journaling. So I write my Dear Daddy God letters in the mornings, and it's really just expressing how I am feeling, whether I'm in a moment of gratitude or I'm in a moment where I'm like, oh God, today I'm gonna really, really need your strength because I have zero energy. I know there are mornings when I wake up and I'm like, Holy Spirit, it's you and I today, because I like I cannot even move. So I'm very intentional about that time that I spend with God, and journaling and the reflection and exercise. Like I do an hour in the morning. And ladies that are here, if you cannot get to the gym, because as a single mother, you can't leave the child in the house in the morning and I cannot exercise in the evening. So I buy my little dumbbells and find a little space in my living room and I exercise. And I'm very, very intentional about that. And of course, setting boundaries, right? Uh, Definitely setting boundaries. And Toni mentioned it earlier that community is so very important. It is important that you have those persons who you can call on, right? So staying connected to supporting people because healing requires intentional self-care and spiritual alignment. So for me, that would be it.
Great, thank you. Toni, what about you?
Very similar once again to Monique. So I don't wake up that early 3, but my child's usually up by 5. So I learned from my cousin, took a page out of her book to wake up at least 5, 10 minutes a little bit early before he does. I find it make a difference. I have my prayers. There's a little devotional book that I've started to read. So I read a little devotional book and I start my day off with some gospel. If I have a little extra time, I may sit outside in the back and have some tea and just kind of watch the sunrise, depending, especially if it's a weekend and he's sleeping in. I am learning to be more intentional as well because I found me waking up when he woke up, I'm just rushing and I'm trying to feed you and pack you up for school and this and that. And the whole day becomes chaotic. And then my mindset for the rest of the day is all over the place versus being intentional and giving yourself that leeway room to wake up and breathe and say, okay, let me relax, let me have me time. I'm also learning to get off my phone. So anyone who knows me knows if you call me at 7 o'clock, you will not get me. My DND is on. That is do not disturb. It's okay when you first wake up, try not to get on your phone. That's what I do. And I find it makes a difference because when I wake up and I hop on my phone, I'm either getting hit with messages that may maneuver my mood or just simply scrolling on social media and you see something and it's like now I'm sad, now I'm upset versus keep your phone to the side, give yourself some time before you hop on it. Same with bedtime. If you could put your phone down right before going to sleep, usually you have a better rest. You don't have racing thoughts, and that gives you also time to journal or even just unwind and think about what happened today. What happened to make me feel this way? What could I have done differently? Even if it's just planning out the next day so you have a set schedule. But I find that having a set schedule helps a lot versus just going with the wind. You're a little bit over the place, and it triggers anxiety. Well, for me, but yeah.
No, I agree. I like the idea of having a set plan in place. And
Yeah.
just to clarify, right? Rarely does any day go exactly according to plan, right? But at least you have an idea of what you would like to get done today, right? So it's so important to have at least a few things on your list so that okay, I'm going with more intention with my next day, right? Okay, so thank you all for sharing that. And Toni, when you and I spoke earlier too, you talked about this playlist thing too that I appreciate. You talked about you have your gospel playlist, you have your Let's Get Things Done playlist, you have your workout playlist, like
I
you have
have my
different,
sad playlist too. If you need to cry and
yeah.
you just listen to it and it helps you release that sadness that you feel inside. Yes.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So some
You too.
Oh,
See, get
yes.
on it. Get a playlist. See, Renee, get you a
Yes.
playlist. You just hit it.
I have a playlist, relax.
Okay.
I have a playlist, just not as structured, so I need to get on that
Okay.
part.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so just looking at coping strategies really quickly that we talked about. So there's two ways that you can view coping strategies, right? You can look at it as emotion focused coping strategies. So focus on regulating the emotion reactions to the stressors, which we talked about a little bit. So you cannot necessarily always change your situation, but you can change how you feel around the situation, right? And that can be through meditation, for example, positive reframing, seeking support, such as like your friends or family, even therapy, prayer, and journaling, like we all talked about earlier. And then another way to look at viewing coping strategies is problem focused coping strategies. So you focus on the stressor in an attempt to decrease it or eliminate it. So, for example, if you're taking if you're trying to finish school and you want to finish a little quicker, you have to finish a little quicker, you're taking extra courses or you're spending more time on a difficult task that you really need to get done. So there are two different ways that we can view coping strategies, okay? I'm looking at the time and I'm going to be mindful because I do have a few more questions, but I'm just going to ask question 8 and 10 on this so we can leave some room for Q&A, okay? So why is having support crucial to building resilience? And we kind of heard that throughout the conversation. And what is one thing you want someone to walk away with today? So Toni, if you want to go ahead, answer both of those questions for me.
Support is very crucial, it's very important. It's harder to do things on your own. So if you feel that you are by yourself, you don't have the community to help motivate you. It's hard to just tell yourself, get out of my head, let me get up, let me do this, let me do that, versus when you have a community or you intentionally place people within your life or allow them to be in your life who are going to say, let me call and check on you. Hey, you're sad. I'm pulling up to your house right now, girl. Come, let's go outside. I'm dragging you to the beach. Okay, you want to stay in and cry? We're going to stay in and cry. I know you like cookie and creams. Here's some cookie and creams. These are little things that, when having these people in your life may make a big difference. Like Monique said, also, it doesn't have to be big. Same with just the support system. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be grand. It's a simple, hey, how are you? It's a simple, I know, Renee, we were talking about the scale, the 1 to 5, how are you doing, before venting or expressing something to somebody, just simply just having the intentions to make sure that person is okay. And before I leave here, I just wanted ladies to know at the end of the day how we are feeling. I know we hear in society how you're feeling it's too much. Females, we're crazy, or we have too much emotions, or we have this or that. No, you don't. It's okay if you feel sad. It's okay if you're mad. It's okay if you want to cry. Cry, be mad, be sad. What it is the intention of what you do behind it. So be mad, but that doesn't mean go drive your car into the bank. Cry, but that doesn't mean, neglect your child and just stay in bed and cry. Allow yourself to have these emotions. Like I said, stay on the boat and ride these emotions, but also, ask yourself, what is making me sad? What's it making me mad? What is triggering me? Sometimes it's even relationships. I know a lot of us will stay in a relationship and say because we're resilient. But being resilient isn't staying in that relationship if it's toxic. So if you know that you're feeling overwhelmed, or you feel like your heart is, too much, or it's red flags, we know what the red flags are. Staying does not make you resilient because of a toxic relationship. What makes you resilient in that situation is saying, well, this is my trigger, so I have to remove myself from this relationship to save my mental health. I try to speed it up because of time.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And that's something
Of
that
course.
you and I talked about too, like talking about the relationship bit. So thank you for including that so much in this. Um, Monique, number 8 and number 10.
Okay, so I'm pretty much on the same side as Tony is. The truth is, healing was never meant to happen in isolation. Isolation, we do need support. There are going to be moments when we are going to need encouragement, and so that is why community support is so very important. And also, we need accountability persons, right? I know that I have my accountability personnel, so yes, who will say, Monique, I'm checking you up on that. I'm following you up on that. Those boundaries that you set. So we need accountability persons when even in the moments when we feel like we want to give up. And sometimes we just need another perspective. Maybe we are seeing the challenge that we're facing through trauma lens sometimes, or from pain and that sort of stuff. So when we have support, and again, your circle just needs to be small. It can just be one or two persons. It doesn't have to be a lot of persons, just to see things from a different perspective. And I do believe that when women support each other, we're basically reminding one another that we're not alone in the struggles that we're experiencing, and community really and truly does strengthen resilience. For me, one of the things that I want to leave with a woman, with somebody today, your story is not over. No matter what you faced, the pain, the trauma, the setbacks, there is still purpose in your life. Healing is still possible. Remember, I'm coming from rock bottom. Growth is possible. And the version of you that God created is still there waiting to rise. I know that every day I wake up and I choose healing, I get to experience a new version of myself, and I'm absolutely in love with her every single day. Just know that your journey can still become a testimony of resilience and hope.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for those beautiful answers. So we do have a resource page on Alex Panton Foundation's website. I'm just going to put this here, but again, with time. You can check out these resources at alexpantonfoundation.ky. And I am going to leave a little Q&A. We have about 2 minutes, but while the questions come in, if there are any, I'm going to ask people to scan the QR code for the feedback survey um, or to complete it via this link. Okay. But while this is here, do we have any questions from the audience or any comments? Okay. I'm not receiving anything yet, so okay, wait. Okay. Oh, Emily shared you're both an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your strength. Oh, thank you, Emily, for saying that. So yes, I'm gonna keep this here, and I want everyone to send the feedback as soon as they can, and that'll be great for us to get back. Get that information so we can know what to do for future lunch and learns. But while this is still here, I just want to say thank you both so much, Toni, so much, Monique, for your vulnerability, for your sensitivity, for your strength, for your emotional awareness, healing, everything, for your advocacy, really and truly, because you could have went through all of these things and kept it to yourself, but you both choose to speak up on it, which is so beautiful and such a testimony of your life, your life's journey. And I'm so excited and happy that I got to partner with you both today. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you too for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
as well. Yes, thank you. And for the encouraging words in the chat.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so thank you all again for attending. I'm going to ask to stop recording